keeping on theme with my last few videos, we're going to be talking about another incredible USB tool, and this one helps you manage bootable ISOs in a way that makes it super simple. So currently, I have a lot of USBs that I use for a whole bunch of different purposes. This is just a small handful. I actually have a full basket that have a bunch of different ISOs on them. For example, this MSI one, I've got Windows 11 on it. This one, I've got Ubuntu on it. I've got Windows 10 on here. I've got Linux Mint on this one. I've got RescueZilla on this one that we used a couple weeks ago. I have Elementary OS on here to kind of speed up some processes for a few other people. I have Clear OS on this one that I use to kind of just play around with a few things. And I've got Pop OS on this one to showcase Linux to a few people and show them how easy it can be. Now, that's a lot of USBs to have on me at all times. A lot of these are ones that I use in terms of troubleshooting. The Windows ones, RescueZilla, having Linux Mint. Those are ones that I use regularly, and I will bring them all when I go to help someone troubleshoot their computer, for example. But the tool that we're going to talk about today, Ventoy, helps consolidate all of those into a singular USB, and it's basically an ISO boot manager that allows you to have a bunch of different ISOs on a singular USB, and you can choose which one you want to boot from. So we're going to be putting it all on this 256 gig USB. I also have a version on a 32 gig USB, and all that has is Windows 10 and Linux. And the reason for that is with legacy BIOS motherboards that only support legacy BIOS, they usually won't read a USB over 32 gigs, so I have that set up just for that. I actually used an old AutoCAD USB and I wiped it and used it for that, which is great. But for the rest of them, I use this 256 gig one, and I have a bunch of different ISOs on it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get Ventoy installed. So we're going to go ahead and head to the downloads. We're going to click on the zip. We're on Windows, so we're going to use the Windows zip. We're going to grab that, open it up, and what we'll do is I have my folder of ISOs here. We'll just drop a Ventoy in there, close that up, and run the Ventoy to disk exe. Now we're going to choose the right device, so it is that 256 gig UltraFit. And if you plug in your drive afterwards, you can click that, and we're going to go ahead and install. It's going to say that's going to format everything. I already cleared that drive of everything so that we can start fresh, and I can show you how the whole process works. But the length of this process would be entirely dependent on the size of your drive. All right, when that completes, you will be greeted with the congratulations. You can go ahead and click on that. Now, the nice thing here is that you can also update the USB if you already have Ventoy on it, and it'll tell you what Ventoy, the current version in the package is, and the one that you have on the device, so you can easily update that. I've never used it, but it is something that you can easily do, so that's great. Now we can hop into our USB. So we have the Ventoy here, and we're going to go back and we're going to have our ISOs. Now, what you can do here is you can just dump the ISOs directly into the folder and just have them all over the place, or you can organize things by using folders. So let's do Windows, I don't know how to spell, and we'll dump Windows into that one, and then we'll create another one. We'll call this Linux. Create another one. We'll call this Tools. So we will rename this one to Linux. I'll grab all the Linux offerings, toss those into Linux, grab RescueZilla, and we'll toss that into Tools, and we'll wait for those to copy over. All right, so we got our ISOs copied over to our Ventoy drive, and we have our stuff in Linux, we have our RescueZilla in Tools, and we have the Windows 11 in Windows. Normally, I'll also have multiple versions of Windows 10 depending on a few different factors, so those would also be in here as well, but right now we don't have them. And if we go ahead and take a look, we right click on the P drive and we take a look, we're currently using 19.2 gigs. So Not actually that many, and we could use a much smaller drive if we wanted to. So the next step is shutting down Windows and booting into this USB, and we will go ahead and do that now. So we're gonna hop into our BIOS. One of the big reasons for that is we have to disable secure boot in order for Ventoy to work. If you have secure boot already off, you can just use the boot override menu. I'm going to still go ahead and go through my BIOS, just show you secure boot being off and the override that I can do directly within my BIOS. So here we are. If we click on boot and we go to secure boot, we can see it is enabled, but it's listed to other OS. So technically it is considered disabled at this point. So if I go back over here, we will see our partitions, and I'm going to click on partition 2, and we're booted into Ventoy. As you can see here, it loaded up instantly, extremely quick, and we can see all of the ISOs that are available on our Ventoy. Now this is not organizing it by folder, this is just an entire directory view. If we want it to be by folder, you would actually select the tree view. So if you see in the bottom hand side, you can see tree view. So if you press F3, now it's going to be the directory. So we have our Linux ones, we have our tools, and then we have Windows. Again, the incredible thing is that this has basically consolidated all of these USBs into a singular USB. And it's extremely easy to utilize, extremely easy to use. You can just go in here, and I'm going to go ahead and I want to launch RescueZilla. I just press enter, I boot into normal mode, and boom, we're booted right into RescueZilla. It's so easy and so quick. I have always suggested that if you have any computers running any kind of OS, to always have a backup of the bootable media on some kind of USB in case you run into issues. And Ventoy just makes that super easy because you can include a bunch of other really great things to help you in case you get into a sticky situation. And it's so easy to manage. You can use a relatively small USB. I have a bunch of ISOs on here, and that's taking up almost 30 gigs. But depending on how many things you are, you can be using a 16 gig, you can be using an 8 gig. It all really depends, but it's such an easy tool to use, and it is a lifesaver. Now, I often bring Ventoy with me when I go and set up people's computers. I have all of my ISOs on there from Linux to Windows, so it makes all of that very, very easy. I don't have to have a separate USB for each thing, and I don't have to have them labeled, right? Normally I would print out labels for these. Some of them don't have labels, and I have duplicates of a bunch, so I have to try to remember which one's which is why I try to use the labels when I can, but now I don't have to worry about that. I just launch or load all of the ISOs onto my Ventoy USB. I can update them, I can change them all the time within Windows or within Linux, and it is just such an incredible tool. And with that, I hope you found this video helpful, or at the very least, I hope you found it interesting. And if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, ThoughtSlime and StepBack, and thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any of my other videos where I've talked about really great computer tools and software, you can go ahead and check out this playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next Saturday.